This movie isn't flashy, it isn't loud, and it barely leaves a single room. But what it is terrifying. Nefarious might be one of the most important films I've ever watched, and I genuinely think it should be shown in any film class, ever. Not just because of its writing, but because the performances are raw and gripping, especially from Sean Patrick Flanery as Edward. Dude absolutely becomes the demon. The cinematography is simple, but in the best way. It knows what to show, what to hold on, and when to let the dialogue breathe. The whole thing mostly takes place in one room, and yet it never feels boring. Welcome to Linsane TV. If you're new here, this is where I talk about films that do more than just entertain. They open your eyes. Nefarious is one of those films, and I want to make this clear up front. You don't have to be religious to get something out of this movie. You can be an atheist, agnostic, spiritual, whatever. Because Jimmy, the main character, is also atheist. This movie is more about confronting uncomfortable truths than it is about converting anyone. But if you are spiritual or religious, there's even more to unpack. Alright, so here's the setup. We follow Jimmy, a court-appointed psychiatrist who's assigned to evaluate a man named Edward on death row. Edward has committed several murders and terrorized families across the country. But Edward claims he isn't the one responsible. He says he's possessed by a demon named Nefarious. And the demon's goal? It's not to escape or kill Jimmy. It's to manipulate Jimmy into signing off that Edward is clinically sane. Because if Edward is declared sane, he can be executed. And if he's executed, Nefarious is released from the vessel. That's the loophole. It's wild. From there, the movie becomes a psychological war. Nefarious tries to slowly break Jimmy down. Not with violence, but with words, logic, and uncomfortable truths. And what makes it so scary is that Nefarious never lies. He only tells the truth, just from a demonic, cynical perspective. And this is where it gets deep. The movie doesn't just want to tell a spooky possession story. It wants to show how evil already exists in the world today, hiding in plain sight. There's a line in the movie that really hits me. Nefarious says something along the lines of,
"You have basketball players making $30 million a year decrying racism, all while wearing sneakers made from slave labor. Now here's something for you. Right now, your world currently has 40 million slaves. More than the Romans had at the height of their empire. You want to know the best part, though? Half of those, half, are sex slaves, James."
And he's not wrong. We live in a world where people talk about justice and equality while turning a blind eye to actual modern day slavery. And if you bring it up, people say, well, how am I supposed to change that? And that's part of the system. Think about it. Diddy's got a stack of allegations and just keeps it moving. Epstein, still no answers. We still don't have the full list. And still no one really held accountable. And all this happens while America stands under the banner of one nation under God. Even something like what Spotify just pushed in the UK, the new law requiring ID verification just to listen to content. It feels like the start of something darker. It may seem like safety on the surface, but how long until it becomes total control? Evil doesn't start with fire. It starts with comfort, with convenience, by saying, it's for your protection. So what makes this demon so dangerous isn't that he's throwing furniture or speaking in tongues. It's that he speaks truth with poison. He hits Jimmy where it hurts. His pride, his worldview, and most of all, his emotions. One of the most intense moments is when Nefarious brings up Jimmy's girlfriend and the fact that she's getting an abortion. He compares it to the ancient rituals where babies were sacrificed to Molech, a demon worshipped through fire. Back then, people made statues of bronze, heated them until they glowed, and placed their babies in the arms of the statue. That's real. That's historical. Nefarious draws a direct line between that and today's society, saying not much has changed, only the methods have. He breaks Jimmy down emotionally, and that's the key. When people are emotional, they don't think rationally. They're more vulnerable. Nefarious doesn't want Jimmy to think. He wants him to feel until he breaks. That's when Jimmy slips. And that's how Nefarious wins. One thing I notice, especially on the rewatch, is how important the number 3 is in the movie. Early on, Nefarious tells Jimmy, by the end of the day, you will have murdered 3 people. And he's right. The first is Jimmy's mother, who he let die by pulling the plug on her. The second is his unborn child, through the abortion he convinced his girlfriend to get. And third, Edward himself, when Jimmy signs the paperwork saying he's sane, which sends him to the electric chair. The number 3 has a lot of spiritual weight. In Christianity, it's the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. It represents divine wholeness and unity. In numerology, it's also a number tied to beginnings and creations. But in Nefarious, it becomes a twisted mirror of all that, the anti-Trinity. Another thing that hit on rewatch was that there's a moment where Jimmy gives Nefarious permission to try to possess him. He says, "Go ahead," and nothing happens. And Nefarious just smiles and says something like,
"A demon who understands the value of patience."
He doesn't force it, he waits. And he actually takes over Jimmy after Edward is executed. When Jimmy is emotionally broken, vulnerable, and spiritually empty, that's when the possession happens. Jimmy becomes the vessel. He grabs a gun, pointing it at everyone in the room, and eventually the entity points it at Jimmy's head. He's ready to end it all. But before he pulls the trigger, Jimmy calls out for help, just a whisper to God. And then he pulls the trigger 3 times. Nothing happens. Divine protection? Maybe. Scripted? Yes. But that moment right there, chills, man. Chills. After that sequence, we time jump to Jimmy on the podcast, talking about the incident, learning that the gun was taken for evaluation. And they tested the same gun and bullets, and they worked perfectly fine. In the end, Nefarious didn't want chaos for the sake of chaos. He wanted order, just his version of it. He wanted Jimmy to write the anti-gospel, basically his demonic doctrine. Just like Jesus had apostles, Nefarious wanted his own. Jimmy was being groomed to be the apostles of the fallen. And the message that humans can become their own gods. That they don't need God, they are God. That you can do what you want, when you want, and answer to no one. And you can see this exact message everywhere today. Just look around. You've got influencers preaching self-love and manifestation while completely rejecting any concept of accountability to a higher power. You've got major music artists literally calling themselves God, creating entire brands around the idea of being untouchable, divine, or transcendent. Social media is flooded with phrases like, "Live your truth," "You are enough," and "You owe nothing to anyone," which sounds empowering, but stripped of humility and direction. It becomes a spiritual echo chamber. Even AI worship is becoming a thing, where people are joking, or sometimes not joking, about letting algorithms or artificial minds make moral decisions for them. The message is clear. The center of the universe is you. That's the real horror. Not the demon, but the world that's already echoing his beliefs. I've seen Nefarious twice now, and I promise you, this movie rewards a rewatch. You catch lines you didn't notice. You start piecing things together. And more than anything, you walk away thinking. It's not a movie about jump scares. It's a movie about ideas, belief, and deception. About evil that wears a friendly face. So whether you believe in demons or not, watch this movie. Then ask yourself, what if evil doesn't need to hide anymore? Or what if we've already accepted it as normal?
Probably just a coincidence, Jimmy.
Anyways, thanks for watching. Share this with someone who needs it, and drop your thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.